The call came during a rare moment of peace in my office, just as I was reviewing charts from my last surgery. 3 decades of silence shattered by a number I didn't recognize, but a voice I'd never forget. Lisa? Lisa, is that really you? My hand froze over the patient files. That voice, older, shakier, but unmistakable. The voice that once sang me lullabies, then years later told me she was leaving for a new life without me. Mom. Not a question. Not warm. Just acknowledgement. I need your help. It's about your brother. I almost laughed. I don't have a brother. Paul, your half-brother. He's dying, Lisa. The fluorescent lights in my office suddenly felt too bright. I'm Dr. Lisa Fleming now, one of the top transplant surgeons on the East Coast. I've built a life where I save people every day, where I never need anyone else, where mothers who abandon their 13-year-old daughters can't hurt me anymore. Why are you calling me? My voice stayed steady, professional, the same tone I used to deliver difficult news to patients' families. He needs a specialized surgery. We've consulted every doctor we could find, and your name kept coming up. They say you're the best at what you do. The irony wasn't lost on me. I pressed my fingers against my temples, feeling a headache building. There are other surgeons. Not like you. Please, Lisa. He's only 22. 22. The age I was when I finished medical school, working 3 jobs to put myself through while she was playing happy family with her new kids. A knock at my door saved me from responding. Nolan poked his head in, his usual grin fading as he caught my expression. I need to go, I said into the phone. Wait, please, just come see him. Come to Mount Sinai. Even if you decide not to help, at least meet him once. I ended the call without answering. Nolan stepped in, closing the door behind him. You look like you've seen a ghost, he said, dropping into the chair across from my desk. Close enough. My mother just called. His eyebrows shot up. In 15 years of friendship, he'd heard plenty about my mother, none of it good. The one who walked out on me to start a new family. Yeah, that one. I stood up, needing to move. Apparently, my half-brother needs surgery. One that I specialize in, of course, because the universe has a sick sense of humor. What are you going to do? I stared out my office window at the Boston skyline. Nothing. I'm going to do nothing. My phone buzzed again. A text this time. An unknown number, but I knew who it was. Please, Lisa. He has 2 weeks at most. I'm begging you. Nolan read the message over my shoulder. You know, he said carefully, sometimes the best revenge isn't refusing to help. Sometimes it's helping in exactly the way they don't expect. I turned to face him. What do you mean? You're Dr. Lisa Fleming. You've performed groundbreaking surgeries. You could walk in there, save this kid's life, and show her exactly what she walked away from. Show her the daughter she threw away became someone extraordinary without her. The idea took root, spreading like frost across a window. I could do it. I could save her precious son, prove my worth, and walk away again, this time on my terms. My phone buzzed once more. The doctors say he won't make it without you. I picked up my phone, fingers hovering over the keys. Nolan watched, waiting. Fine, I typed. I'll be there tomorrow morning, but I'm doing this as Dr. Fleming, not as your daughter. The response was immediate. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I put the phone down and looked at Nolan. What am I doing? He smiled, but his eyes were serious. You're being the better person, and maybe getting a little justified revenge in the process. I gathered my files, already mentally preparing for tomorrow. Call Mount Sinai, I told him. Tell them Dr. Fleming is coming to consult on Paul Gray's case. And Nolan? Yeah? Clear my schedule for the next 2 weeks. Something tells me this is going to be complicated. As I packed up my office for the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into an emotional minefield. But maybe, just maybe, I could turn this into my chance to finally close old wounds, on my own terms. The drive to Mount Sinai felt like traveling back in time. Every mile closer to New York brought another memory I'd tried to bury. I cranked up the radio, but even that betrayed me. Playing some old song my mother used to sing while making Sunday breakfast. My phone rang through the car speakers. Caroline, my mentor. I heard you're taking on the Gray case, she said without preamble. News travels fast. I switched lanes, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and orange. Lisa, I know who Paul Gray is. Are you sure about this? I gripped the steering wheel tighter. You knew? I've been following his case. When I saw the family name, well, it wasn't hard to connect the dots. That's why I wanted to call. There might be another way to approach this surgery. I'm listening. As Caroline detailed an innovative technique she'd been developing, my mind wandered to the last morning I saw my mother. I was 13, sitting at our kitchen table, still in my pajamas. Lisa? Caroline's voice snapped me back. Are you still there? Yeah, sorry, just remembering things I'd rather forget. Want to talk about it? I pulled into a rest stop, needing coffee and a moment to breathe. Did I ever tell you about the day she left? No, you never have. She made me breakfast. Pancakes with strawberries, my favorite. Then she sat down and told me she was leaving. Just like that, between bites of perfectly normal pancakes. I laughed, but it came out hollow. She said she'd found real love, that she needed to follow her heart. As if loving your own kid wasn't real enough. Jesus, Lisa. You know what the worst part was? She'd already packed. While I was sleeping, she'd loaded up her car. She was gone before I finished those damn pancakes. The coffee shop was nearly empty. I ordered and sat by the window, watching trucks rumble past. And now she needs you, Caroline said softly. Ironic, right? The daughter she didn't need might be her son's only hope. That's why I called. This new technique, it could work for Paul's case. It's less invasive, higher success rate, but it's also more complex. You'd need to train specifically for it. My coffee arrived and I took a long sip. How long would that take? A week, maybe 2. I could fly up to Boston today, start working with you immediately. 2 weeks, the same time frame my mother mentioned. He might not have that long. Then you have a choice to make. Traditional approach, which you could do tomorrow, or wait and try something revolutionary. The bell above the coffee shop door chimed, and a mother walked in with her teenage daughter. They were laughing about something, heads bent together, sharing a private joke. My throat tightened. If we wait, I said, turning away from them, and it doesn't work, then you'll have tried something extraordinary to save him. Either way, you'll have done more than most would in your position. I finished my coffee and headed back to my car. Send me everything you have on the new technique. I'll review it when I get there. Lisa? Caroline's voice softened. Whatever you decide, I'm proud of you for even considering this. Back on the road, my phone buzzed with a text. Nolan, arrived at Mount Sinai. Your mother's here. So is your sister. Sister. Another word that felt wrong in my mouth. I'd seen pictures of Alana online, the daughter my mother kept, the one she chose. How do they seem? I texted back at the next red light. Scared. Your mother's been crying. Alana seems different from what you described. More genuine, maybe? I didn't respond. Couldn't respond. The New York skyline was appearing on the horizon, and with it, the weight of what I was about to do settled on my shoulders. Another text came through, this time from an unknown number. Hi, Lisa, this is Alana. I know this is awkward, but thank you for coming. Whatever happens, thank you. I pulled into the hospital parking lot, spotting Nolan waiting by the entrance. Before getting out, I took a deep breath and looked at myself in the rearview mirror. You're Dr. Lisa Fleming, I told my reflection. You're here to save a life, nothing more. But as I grabbed my bag and stepped out of the car, I knew it wasn't that simple. It never could be. Nolan walked toward me, concern etched on his face. Ready? No, I said honestly, but let's do this anyway. Together, we walked through the hospital doors, toward the family I never wanted to see again, and the brother I never knew I had. The hospital corridor stretched before me like a runway, each step echoing with finality. Nolan's presence at my side kept me moving forward until we reached room 412. Through the window, I saw her first. My mother, older but still beautiful, clutching the hand of a young man in the hospital bed. Dr. Fleming? A nurse approached with a tablet. We have the patient's files ready. I grabbed onto the professional lifeline. Thank you. I'll review them before... Lisa. Too late. My mother stood in the doorway, her eyes red-rimmed and hopeful. She looked smaller than I remembered, more fragile. Part of me wanted to feel satisfied seeing her this way, but it just made my chest ache. Nicole, I said, using her first name deliberately. I'll need to review Paul's case files before. She stepped forward as if to hug me. I took a step back, bumping into Nolan. Right, she said, dropping her arms. Of course, professional first. It's just, you look so much like. Don't. The word came out sharper than I intended. Let's focus on why I'm here. A young woman appeared behind my mother, Alana. She had our mother's eyes, but her expression was all compassion and worry. Paul's awake, she said softly. He'd like to meet you. I nodded, steeling myself before entering the room. The young man in the bed looked nothing like I'd imagined. He had our father's dark hair, but his face was gaunt, his skin sallow. Various machines beeped around him, monitoring his failing body. You're Lisa? His voice was weak but curious. Mom's other daughter? I'm Dr. Fleming, I corrected, picking up his chart. I'm here to evaluate your case. But you're also my sister, right? He smiled, and suddenly I saw my father in him so clearly it hurt. Why didn't you ever visit before? The room went deadly quiet. I felt everyone's eyes on me, waiting for my response. Paul? Alana started. Maybe we should... No, I said, surprising myself. He deserves an answer. I met Paul's eyes. I didn't visit because I didn't know you existed until yesterday. Your mother left when I was 13 and started a new family. You and Alana. Paul's eyes widened, darting between me and our mother. But you said Lisa went away to school, that she was too busy with her medical career to visit. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that what she told you? Lisa, please. My mother stepped forward. This isn't the time. When is the time? I turned to face her. When he's stronger? When I'm gone again? How many more lies are you planning to tell? Stop it, both of you. Alana's voice cut through the tension. Paul doesn't need this right now. He needs his doctor and his family, all of his family, to help him survive. She was right, of course. I looked back at Paul's monitors, at his chart, at anything but the tears in my mother's eyes. I'll need to examine you, I told Paul, pulling on latex gloves, and then I'll consult with your current medical team. As I began the examination, Paul watched me with those familiar dark eyes. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I always wanted a big sister. My hands faltered for just a moment. Well, you got two, I managed. Lucky you. The examination confirmed what I'd feared. His condition was worse than the files suggested. Without intervention, he had days, not weeks. Caroline's innovative technique would take too long to learn. I'll need to schedule the surgery for tomorrow morning, I announced, pulling off my gloves. Traditional approach, it's his best chance. Thank you, my mother whispered. I turned to leave, but Paul's voice stopped me. Will you come back? After the surgery, I mean? Just to talk? I looked at him. Really looked at him. Past the illness, past the machines, past the family drama. He was just a kid, scared and hoping his big sister might stick around. Let's focus on getting you through tomorrow first, I said. Then we'll see. In the hallway, Nolan waited with coffee. That was intense, he said, handing me a cup. That was nothing, I replied, taking a long drink. Tomorrow's the real test. The surgery? No. I watched through the window as Alana helped Paul sit up, while our mother hovered nearby. Tomorrow I have to prove I'm better than her. I have to save the son she chose to keep, then walk away just like she did to me. Nolan touched my arm. Is that really what you want? I didn't answer, because honestly, watching Paul laugh at something Alana said, I wasn't sure anymore. The hospital cafeteria at midnight was eerily quiet as I spread Paul's scans across the table. Caroline's voice crackled through my phone's speaker while Nolan nursed his third coffee. The traditional approach is risky, Caroline said. His liver function is worse than we thought. We don't have time for anything else. I rubbed my eyes, trying to focus on the images. The surgery's scheduled for 8 a.m. There might be a way to modify the procedure, Caroline suggested. Combine elements of the new technique with the traditional approach. Nolan leaned forward. Is that even possible? Theoretically, it would require perfect timing, but footsteps interrupted us. Alana appeared, carrying 2 fresh coffees. She set one in front of me without asking. "Mind if I join you?" she asked. I gestured to an empty chair, putting the phone on speaker. "Caroline, you were saying?" "The modified approach would reduce recovery time, but it's never been done before. You'd be writing a new chapter in surgical history." Alana studied the scans. "You're trying to save him without destroying your career if it fails." I looked up sharply. "Excuse me?" "I'm a lawyer," she said, meeting my gaze. "I understand calculating risks. You want to help, but you also want to protect yourself. From failure, from blame, from—" She paused. "From caring too much." "Caroline, I'll call you back," I said, ending the call. "Alana, why are you really here?" She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "Because I need you to know something. Mom didn't just leave you. She left me too." "What are you talking about? You were her do-over family." "I was 7 when she left Dad, your dad, for my father. Then when I was 12, she left us too. For 3 years. Came back when Paul was born." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Nolan's eyes widened, but he stayed silent. "She left you too?" Alana nodded. "Different dad, same story. She said she needed to find herself. Sound familiar?" I pushed back from the table, needing space. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because tomorrow you're going to hold my brother's life in your hands, and I need to know you're doing it for the right reasons." She leaned forward. "Are you here to save Paul or to prove something to Mom?" "I'm here because I'm the best chance he has." "But are you giving him your best chance, or are you choosing the safest option to protect yourself?" Nolan cleared his throat. "She has a point, Lisa. Caroline's modification could increase his survival rate significantly." I stared at the scans, at the coffee Alana had brought me, at my hands that would soon be trying to save my brother's life. "The modified approach is riskier for me," I said finally. "If it fails, my reputation—" "Screw your reputation," Alana's voice echoed in the empty cafeteria. "This is your brother's life we're talking about, our brother. I just met him yesterday." "And does that make his life worth less?" We glared at each other across the table. I saw myself in her determination, in her fierce protection of family, even a family as broken as ours. My phone buzzed, a text from Caroline. "Whatever you decide, I'm on the first flight out. Just say the word." "If I try the modification," I said slowly, "I'll need your help, both of you." Nolan nodded immediately. Alana looked surprised but determined. "What do you need?" "I need you to keep Mom away until after the surgery. I can't have her hovering, making this about her. This needs to be about Paul." "Done," Alana said. "What else?" I picked up my phone. "I need Caroline here within the next 4 hours. We'll need to modify the surgical plan, brief the team." I looked at Nolan. "You'll assist?" "Try and stop me." For the first time since arriving at Mount Sinai, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't even about my mother. It was about giving Paul his best chance, regardless of our complicated history. I texted Caroline, "Get here now. We're doing the modification." Alana stood up. "I'll handle Mom. You focus on saving our brother." As she walked away, Nolan helped me gather the scans. "You know," he said, "for someone who claims to hate her family, you're putting a lot on the line for them." "I'm not doing it for them," I replied, but even I wasn't sure if that was true anymore. My phone buzzed again. "Caroline, on my way. And Lisa, you're making the right choice." I hoped she was right, because in a few hours I'd either make medical history or lose everything, including a brother I'd just started to care about. The pre-op room hummed with tension as Caroline walked me through the modified procedure one final time. Dawn was breaking outside, painting the hospital windows in soft gold. "The critical moment will be here." Caroline pointed to the diagram she'd sketched. "You'll have exactly 47 seconds to complete the anastomosis before—" A knock at the door interrupted us. Paul's primary nurse stepped in. "Dr. Fleming, the patient's asking for you." I glanced at the clock. 30 minutes until surgery. Caroline squeezed my arm. "Go, I'll finish briefing the team." Paul was sitting up when I entered his room, looking impossibly young in his hospital gown. Alana had kept her word. Our mother was nowhere in sight. "Nervous?" I asked, checking his vitals one last time. "Terrified." He managed a weak smile. but everyone says you're the best, that you do impossible things. I adjusted his IV line. Nothing's impossible, just complicated. Like family? My hand stilled. Yeah, like family. Mom told me the truth last night about leaving you. He picked at his blanket. I'm sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for. Still, it explains a lot. Why you became a doctor, why you're so... He gestured vaguely. Determined. I sat on the edge of his bed. Paul, I need you to understand something. What happened between me and your mom, our mom, doesn't matter right now. In that operating room, you're not my long-lost brother. You're my patient, and I give every patient everything I have. Even the ones whose moms abandoned you? Despite everything, I laughed. Even those. His expression turned serious. Alana says you're trying something new, something risky. We are. It gives you the best chance, but it could ruin your career if it goes wrong. When I nodded, he continued, why take that risk for someone you barely know? Before I could answer, Nolan appeared in scrubs. It's time. Paul grabbed my hand. Wait, thank you, whatever happens. I squeezed his hand, surprised by how natural it felt. See you on the other side, little brother. In the scrub room, I methodically washed my arms as Caroline reviewed the final details. Nolan prepped beside me, his usual pre-surgery excitement replaced by focused intensity. Team's ready, Caroline said. Modified instruments are prepared. We've got the best people in that room. I dried my hands, trying to ignore the tremor in my fingers. If this goes wrong, it won't. Caroline stepped closer. You know why? Because you're not doing this for revenge anymore. You're doing it because it's right. The operating room doors swung open. My team stood ready. 12 people who'd dropped everything to be here, to try something that had never been done before. Okay, people, I announced, approaching the table where Paul lay unconscious. Let's make some history. The first 2 hours went exactly as planned. Then Paul's pressure dropped. BP falling, the anesthesiologist called out. 70/40 and dropping. We're not there yet, I said, my hands steady despite the chaos. Push one of epi. Lisa, Nolan warned, we're running out of time. I know. I took a deep breath. Caroline, you ready? She moved closer. This is it. 47 seconds. The room fell silent except for the beeping monitors. Everything we'd planned, everything we'd modified, came down to these next moments. Starting anastomosis, I announced. Timer running. My world narrowed to the microscopic field before me. Every suture had to be perfect, every movement precise. 30 seconds, Caroline called. Paul's monitors screamed warnings. 20 seconds. Sweat trickled down my back. 10 seconds. The final suture, the most crucial one. 5 seconds. Done. I straightened up. Released the clamps. Everyone held their breath as blood flowed through the new connections. 1 second, 2, 3. The monitors stabilized. BP rising, the anesthesiologist reported. 80, 90, holding steady at 95/60. A collective exhale swept through the room. Caroline gripped my shoulder. You did it. We did it, I corrected, looking at my team. Every single one of us. As we began closing, Nolan glanced at me. Want me to tell the family? I shook my head. No, I need to do this part myself. 2 hours later, I walked into the waiting room still in my scrubs. My mother jumped up, Alana beside her. He made it, I said simply. The modification worked. He'll need careful monitoring, but I allowed myself a small smile. He's going to be fine. My mother burst into tears. Alana hugged me before I could stop her. Thank you, she whispered, for giving him your best, not your safest. Over her shoulder, I watched our mother sink back into her chair, relief and gratitude warring with years of guilt on her face. For the first time, I felt neither triumph nor bitterness, just tired, and maybe, just maybe, ready to heal something more than just Paul's body. The recovery room was quiet except for the steady beeping of monitors. I checked Paul's vitals for the 3rd time in an hour, though I knew the resident on duty was perfectly capable. You should rest, Nolan said from the doorway. You've been up for 36 hours. I will, soon. I adjusted Paul's IV line. I just need to make sure that your groundbreaking surgery worked, because the labs already confirmed that. He handed me a coffee. The medical board is buzzing, by the way. Caroline's been fielding calls all morning. Before I could respond, my mother appeared behind him. She'd changed clothes but looked as exhausted as I felt. Could we talk? She asked softly. Please? Nolan squeezed my shoulder as he left. I'll be in the lounge if you need me. For a moment, we just stood there, the beeping monitors filling the silence. My mother moved closer to Paul's bed, touching his hand gently. He looks so much like your father when he sleeps, she said. Don't. My voice was sharp. Don't try to connect this to then. Don't make this about the past. Isn't everything about the past? She turned to face me. I saw you in there, through the observation window. You were magnificent, everything I always knew you could be. You lost the right to be proud of me when you walked out that door. I know. She sank into the chair beside Paul's bed. I know I did. But watching you today, seeing you save him, I realized something. I didn't just leave you back then. I left myself too. What's that supposed to mean? It means I was a coward. I ran from being your mother because I was failing at it. Then I ran from Alana for the same reason. I kept running until Paul came along, and I finally realized I couldn't run anymore. So he was your redemption baby? The words came out bitter. Your chance to finally get it right. No, Lisa, he was my wake-up call. When he was born, I looked at him and saw you, saw all the moments I'd missed with you, all the damage I'd done. I swore I'd do better. Congratulations, you did better for him, not for me. I know. She stood up, moving toward me. I know nothing I say can fix what I broke. But watching you today, seeing the amazing woman you've become despite me, not because of me. She wiped tears from her cheeks. I'm so sorry. The door opened before I could respond. Alana rushed in, waving her phone. The medical board wants to publish the procedure, she announced. They're calling it the Fleming modification. You're going to be famous. I don't care about that, I said, checking Paul's monitors again. I just want him to wake up. He will, my mother said. Because of you. I turned to face them both. The mother who left, the sister who stayed, the complicated mess of family I never asked for. I didn't do it for any of you, I said. I did it because it was right, because he deserved my best, not my bitterness. Alana smiled. That's why it worked. Because you chose healing over hurting. A small sound from the bed made us all freeze. Paul's fingers twitched. Get the resident, I ordered, moving to his side. Now. As Alana rushed out, Paul's eyes fluttered open. He looked confused, then focused on me. Did it work? His voice was barely a whisper. Like a charm. I checked his pupils. How do you feel? Like I got hit by a truck. He managed a weak smile. But I'm alive. Yes, you are. Our mother moved to his other side, taking his hand. Paul looked between us. Are you two okay? I paused, searching for the right words. We're working on it. The resident arrived with Alana and began her checks. I stepped back, suddenly overwhelmed by exhaustion. You need sleep, Alana said, steadying me. We'll stay with him. I nodded, too tired to argue. At the door, I turned back. Mom? She looked up, hope and fear warring in her expression. I'm not ready to forgive you, I said honestly. I might never be, but I'm ready to stop letting that define me. She nodded, tears falling freely now. That's more than I deserve. As I walked toward the doctor's lounge, my phone buzzed with a message from Caroline. The medical world is in awe of what you did today, but I'm more impressed by what you didn't do. What's that? I texted back. Her response was immediate. You didn't let pain win over purpose. You chose to heal more than just his body. I looked back through the recovery room window. My mother was stroking Paul's hair while Alana told him about the surgery. They were broken, complicated, messy, but they were alive. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough for now. 3 days after the surgery, I stood at the nurse's station reviewing Paul's latest labs when Alana appeared with 2 cups of coffee. His numbers look good, she said, peering over my shoulder. Better than good. I pointed to the chart. His liver function is almost normal. The modification worked better than we expected. Speaking of which, she handed me a coffee and pulled out her phone. Have you seen the medical journal headlines? Revolutionary surgical technique saves young man's life. You're trending in the medical community. Great. Just what I needed. More attention. Dr. Fleming? A nurse interrupted us. Your brother's asking for you, says it's important. I found Paul sitting up in bed, looking stronger than he had in days. The room was empty for once. No hovering mother, no medical students eager to witness the miracle patient. Where's Mom? I asked, checking his IV. I sent her to get real food. Hospital cafeteria is killing me. He gestured to the chair beside his bed. Can we talk? I sat down, noting his improved color. Everything okay? Yeah, just... He fidgeted with his blanket. I found something on Mom's phone. My stomach tightened. Paul, she has a whole folder of you. He pulled out his tablet. Articles about your surgeries, news clips, even your high school graduation photo. She's been following your career for years. I stood up abruptly. I don't want to see... Lisa, please. His voice cracked. She saved everything, every achievement, every breakthrough. She has a video of you giving a speech at some medical conference last year. She was proud of you, is proud of you, even if she didn't have the courage to tell you. Stop. My hands were shaking. That doesn't change what she did. No, it doesn't. But maybe it changes what happens next. Before I could respond, Caroline burst into the room, excitement radiating from her. The board approved it, she announced. They want us to develop a training program for the modification. We could help hundreds of patients. Paul grinned. See, you're not just my hero. You're going to be everyone's hero. I'm not a hero, I protested. I'm just a doctor who risked her career to save her brother's life. Nolan appeared in the doorway. Who created a revolutionary procedure because the traditional approach wasn't good enough? Sounds pretty heroic to me. I looked at them all, Paul with his hopeful eyes, Caroline practically bouncing with excitement, Nolan with his knowing smile. Fine, I sighed. When do we start? That's the best part, Caroline said. They want to base the training program here, at Mount Sinai. You'd need to stay in New York for at least 6 months to oversee it. The room went quiet. Paul's monitors beeped steadily in the background. 6 months? I repeated. Think about it, Nolan said. You could train other surgeons, save more lives, maybe even... He glanced at Paul. Reconnect with some people. I have a life in Boston, I protested weakly. A life you built running away? Paul asked softly. Or a life you actually want? Before I could answer, Alana rushed in. Mom's coming back, with actual food and... She hesitated. Dad's with her. Your dad. Our dad. My heart stopped. What? She called him. Said he should know about Paul's surgery, about what you did. He wants to see you. I hadn't seen my father in 15 years. After Mom left, he'd thrown himself into work, leaving me largely alone. We drifted apart, another casualty of my mother's choices. I can't, I whispered. I can't deal with all of this. Yes, you can, Paul said firmly, because you're not dealing with it alone anymore. Footsteps approached in the hallway. I could hear my mother's voice and then his voice, deep, familiar, unchanged. Lisa, Caroline touched my arm. What do you want to do? I looked at Paul's monitors one last time. Strong, steady, healing. Just like him. Just like maybe I could be. Stay, I said finally. I'll stay and do the training program. Paul's face lit up. Alana hugged me impulsively. But, I added, I'm doing it for the medicine, not for everything else. That part needs to happen on its own terms. The footsteps were right outside now. My mother's laugh, my father's deep chuckle, sounds from a past I'd tried so hard to forget. Ready? Nolan asked quietly. I straightened my white coat, squared my shoulders. No, but when has that ever stopped me? The door opened, and there they were. My mother with bags of food and my father, older but still tall and strong, his eyes finding mine immediately. Lisa, he breathed. My God, look at you. I felt Paul's hand slip into mine, squeezing gently, supporting me, just as I'd supported him. Sometimes I realized the hardest surgeries aren't the ones we perform on others, but the ones we perform on our own hearts. The autumn breeze carried the scent of coffee from the hospital courtyard as I finished demonstrating the Fleming modification to my latest group of surgical residents. Through the observation window, I could see Paul watching, still fascinated by the procedure that saved his life. Questions? I asked, stripping off my gloves. A young resident raised her hand. Dr. Fleming, how did you know the modification would work the first time? I didn't. I caught Paul's proud grin through the glass. Sometimes you have to trust that doing the right thing is worth the risk. As the residents filed out, Paul entered the teaching theater. Impressive as always, sis. Ready for lunch? Everyone's waiting. Everyone had become our new normal. A crowded table in the hospital cafeteria where boundaries blurred between personal and professional, past and present. We found them at our usual spot. Alana arguing legal precedents with Caroline, Nolan showing my father something on his phone, and my mother. My mother setting out containers of home-cooked food. No cafeteria food today, she announced. I made your favorite. The smell of her marinara sauce hit me first. You remembered the recipe? Of course I did. She hesitated. I made it every year on your birthday, even when I couldn't share it with you. 6 months of weekly family lunches hadn't erased 20 years of pain, but they'd done something else, created space for new memories alongside the old wounds. The board called this morning, Caroline said as we sat down. 3 more hospitals want to implement the training program. Speaking of programs, my father cleared his throat. I've been thinking about the foundation idea. Yes, the foundation. His suggestion to create a medical fund for families separated by illness or circumstance, a way to prevent others from facing what our family had. The paperwork's ready, Alana added. We just need your signature to make it official. The Lisa Fleming Foundation, Paul grinned, has a nice ring to it. Actually, I said, I was thinking we should call it the Family Reconstruction Foundation, because sometimes what needs healing isn't just the body. My mother's fork clattered against her plate. Nolan squeezed my shoulder, understanding the weight of what I'd just offered. Lisa, my mother started, but I cut her off. I'm not saying I've forgotten, or that everything's fixed, but maybe. I looked around the table at this patchwork family we'd somehow built. Maybe we can help other families find their way back to each other. Do it better than we did. Together? Paul asked. Together, I confirmed. My father reached for my hand across the table. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me. After your mother left. Dad, don't. We both did what we had to do to survive. I managed a smile. Besides, look where we ended up. Speaking of where we ended up, Alana interjected, are you going to tell them your news? All eyes turned to me. I took a deep breath. Mount Sinai offered me permanent position, head of surgical innovation, with my own research department. You're staying? Paul's face lit up. I'm staying. I looked at my mother. Not for the past, for the future. She nodded, tears in her eyes. That's more than I deserve. Maybe it's exactly what we all deserve, Nolan said. A chance to build something new. Caroline raised her water glass. To building something new. As everyone clinked glasses, my pager buzzed. Emergency surgery needed. Go, my father said. We'll save you some food. Promise? The word carried more weight than just lunch. Promise. They all said in unison. As I hurried toward the OR, I caught my reflection in a window. I saw what Paul had seen that first day. Not just Dr. Fleming, the surgeon who'd made medical history, but Lisa, the daughter and sister who'd found her way home through the most unexpected path. My phone buzzed with a text from Paul. Knock 'em dead, sis. We'll be here when you're done. And that was the thing about family I realized as I scrubbed in for surgery. Sometimes it breaks apart so it can heal stronger. Sometimes the worst fractures lead to the most remarkable recoveries. The OR doors swung open. My team waited, ready to perform another miracle. Okay, people, I said, stepping up to the table. Let's give someone else a chance at healing. Because that's what we'd all become. Healers. Of bodies, of hearts, of the past itself. And maybe that was the greatest modification of all.